mitigation action. This is a tool developed by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change for developing countries to implement activities that help them meet their commitments under the Paris Accord. And so our NAMA is called Subnational Actions for the Restoration of Degraded Forests and the Implementation of Planned Grazing. So the NAMA has three main components. The first is state financing mechanisms, state carbon compensation mechanisms, using the mechanism already established in the state of Querétaro as an example. And Juan Manuel Navarrete will be discussing that mechanism that has been established in the state of Querétaro. And so as part of the NAMA, we will be inviting other states throughout Mexico to also establish their funds in carbon compensation mechanisms. The second main component is the restoration of degraded forests. Juan Manuel will also be discussing that in a little bit more detail, but what that basically involves is the removal of cattle and other degradation factors from high biodiversity forests to allow and promote the natural regeneration of those forests and the capture of carbon in those forests. And we will also be promoting the replication of that activity in other states throughout the country, and we have a goal of replicating that in 10 states and at least 338,000 hectares throughout the country. And then the third component is planned grazing and holistic planned grazing and other best practices of regenerative actions in pasture lands, in grazing lands. And that is also an activity that is occurring in the state of Querétaro, and that we are going to be encouraging its replication in states throughout Mexico. And we have an initial goal of at least 7 states and more than 800,000 hectares using those regenerative practices. And to estimate, to evaluate the impacts of these activities, we are going to apply guidance documents of the Initiative for Climate Action Transparency. And in a few minutes, David, to my right, will be discussing that initiative in more detail, but I'd like to discuss a little bit about our strategies for applying those. So we are going to be applying 5 different guidance documents of the Initiative for Climate Action Transparency, 2 guidance documents to evaluate greenhouse gas impacts of these activities, which include